everybody. Welcome to the work session for December 20th, 2022. It is 5:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Hewitt?
Here.
Vice Mayor Suey?
Here.
Commissioner Romanek?
Here.
Commissioner Watson? Here. Mayor Orndorff?
Here. We all could stand for the salute of the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, was advertised, posted, and made available to the public as required by statute. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. Clerk, are there any changes to this meeting
No, Mayor.
agenda? Thank you. Presentations? There's
No presentations.
Okay. Public comment, if anybody would like to come to the podium, state any comments on the agenda items only, please come to the podium, state those comments and your name. Seeing nobody, will close the public comment on agenda items only. Discussion items for this evening.
We have a discussion concerning the tax increase. Who's going to handle that? Vice Mayor Hewitt? Okay, Vice Mayor.
Myself and Mrs. Shepherd. So, in starting the budget this year, we had one very unexpected increase, which is the health insurance premium. And according to my figures today from Marcy, that's $600,000. We also have an increase in the JIF for $199,713. The PFRS, is that the contractual raise or is that just the pension?
That's just the pension.
All right, so for the pension, it's $416,000 for PERS, which covers everybody but police and fire. It's $100,000. And additionally, not shown on here is contractual raises of 3% for PFRS, for police and fire, and for council 18, and that's not even on here yet. So you guys can see that 1 cent equals $146,236. Not counting the contractual increases, right now it's a 10.10%, 10.10 cent increase. That's 10 cents for every 100. That's kind of some devastating news. This is all beyond our control to what we can do. It's based basically on the number of employees that we have. So we're looking for cuts. We're looking for additional revenue streams. But I just want all you guys to know what we're up against before we make any promises to bring any new employees on, to increase the size of any departments, or to do anything else with capital. Our operating expenses are evened out. We've evened those out, so we've done a good job with costs that we can control. So we have some projects that are on the line. The question is going to be whether they get here on time to offset some of these tax increases. So that's the big question right now. I don't know the answer to that yet. We're working diligently to bring these businesses in and get some of this stuff rolling. And hopefully it will be done, but I wanted you guys to be prepared. I wanted the public to be prepared. I'm going to advise you to start looking for places to cut. It's not going to be easy, but start looking. Because this tax increase is devastating to those on fixed incomes. Absolutely devastating. And really it's, you know, the contractual stuff was done before we got here. The health insurance is based on the state, the JIF insurance based on the JIF, of course, and the pension cost also based on the state. So it's all stuff that's beyond our control. It's all stuff that we're going to work to offset very hard. And when do we have to have our final budget done?
I believe the extended date to the adoption is April 28th.
So there you go. We got 4 months to get this done. I don't know if any of you guys have any comments or not, but
I mean, I know from the healthcare, I know there was a really big increase, and obviously it's affected a lot of people, but I just for understanding, and is there anything that we can do outside? Like, can you go through a different company as far as insurance to help with that, or do we have to go through who we're going through?
We did. We tried to get Allen and Associates to get us some quotes from
Yeah, I know they mentioned that.
providers. And they came to the meeting, they tell us that due to our history, that they couldn't get any better rates.
History meaning like, so when you have too many car accidents, your rates go up, or
That's
is that like?
liability insurance for JIF, which
Also, that was gonna be my next question, so I'm pretty sure this had affected the employees as well. Their contribution has also gone up. I don't wanna put a number on it, but I heard people saying like 20%, and that's
Well, it depends
on their how much money they make,
The
and,
more money you make, the higher your contribution.
right, so the city's feeling it, the employees are feeling it. Okay.
And those guidelines also come from the state on how much they're,
Correct.
sorry, they're not subject to negotiations, they're from the state.
It's negotiated with
Right.
the state.
Okay. And Marcy, just so I know you're not on the mic, so but you're also saying we cover insurance for 13 years for anybody who's retired. So if those,
Depends on how many years you worked for the city.
okay, so up to 13 years.
15 years, up to 13.
Okay, so we're covering health insurance for those who have whatever their medical needs are. And again, you're saying looking at the history, that's why our rate's so high.
Well, the 24% from the state is just every municipality is
Everybody.
paying that.
Mm.
But when we went out to try and get our own insurance without being in a state plan, he wasn't able to get us rates much better.
Any better than what the state's providing at 24%.
So we're still working on it, but that's where we're at today.
Yeah,
So
that's not
I'm
good.
confident we'll make some progress. I hope that's just not wishful thinking, but I do think we'll make some progress. Again, it's just a matter of if it's going to be in time or not. So I don't have anything else to discuss about that. I brought everybody up enough bad news for Christmas now.
Well, I think it's helpful to know that the details of it, where it's coming from. Again, just being transparent with everybody, giving a heads up. So. Anybody else have anything for that?
No, ma'am.
They're all so excited to talk this evening.
I'm also
Alright.
looking at, like Joe said, you know, some of these things, there's nothing at all we can do about.
Mhm.
Cost just to keep the fleet on the street, all of our vehicles, fuel, insurances. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of commissions that also like to just settle things. That's costing us on insurance.
Mhm.
You know, it's just like our own insurance. Our insurance record dictates what we pay for insurance each year. It's sad, but you know,
I know we talked earlier, but I think the price of gas even went up, so that was a
Yeah.
huge increase in the
Yes,
budget
yeah,
as well, that we weren't expecting that, and I don't think any of us, I mean, we're hopeful that it goes down, but I don't know how much down it's gonna go, but that's also something that we weren't considering in the budget, you know.
It's a good example of how state and national policies expect, affect what we do here. And we have no control over that sitting here.
All right, then we'll go on to number 2.
Okay, so this is the discussion concerning vacant and abandoned property application to commercial real estate by City Attorney Brock Russell.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The various regulations concerning the maintenance of properties of the city are contained in Chapter 11 of our code. And there are a number of different articles. There's a lot of overlap in the articles, and the reason for that is because the articles are based on state law, and the state has enacted various legislative schemes over the years, and then every time they do that, then we've codified that in an article, and there is quite a bit of overlap, which can be confusing. But I'm going to run through what our remedies are and what the regulations are. In Article 2, in essence, what that is, that's the Property Maintenance Code, and that's based on the International Property Maintenance Code. And property owners, commercial and residential, have to comply with the International Property Maintenance Code. If they don't, the public officer, and that would be usually the construction code official, but it could also be, in certain cases, the zoning officer, would issue a notice of violation in order to comply. The typical compliance period may be 10 days or more, and if the condition is not, a problem is not abated, then there would be a summons to municipal court. Then we have Article 3, which is entitled Dangerous, Damaged, and Unfit Structures, and this is the article that really involves a complaint by the public officer followed by a hearing before this body. And this particular commission hasn't had any of those prior commissions, we've gone through those before. And in essence, there's a complaint, there's a notice of hearing, and the hearing takes place here before this board. And this board would have, depending upon how bad the property is, it would have remedies, including closing an unfit structure, 2, requiring the repair within a reasonable time, or 3, if it's really a bad situation, we've had these before, an order for demolition. And we've had demolitions before of structures, and that's how properties get demolished. There is also a provision for emergency measures. In other words, if there's an imminent danger, the public officer can take action on an expedited basis without a hearing before the Board of Commissioners. Also, if there's emergency repairs, they can be asserted as a lien against the property. However, there should, in any case, be some notice given to the property owner, even if it's 24 hours, to give the property owner an opportunity to correct the condition prior to the issuance of the notice of violation or action taken by the construction code official in the event of an emergency. Next, we have Article 4, which is entitled Abandoned Property and Buildings Unfit for Habitation, Occupancy, of Use, and you'll notice the overlap with the prior section. But I call this really the board and secure ordinance, and also the abandoned property list. Now, board and secure, if there's a open vacant structure, then the construction code official or one of the other public officers of the, or with the assistance of the police, can after some notice to the property owner, and it depends how bad the situation is. If it's just an open structure, they're supposed to be given 30 days notice. However, if there's an open vacant structure and there are drug dealers that or drug users entering the structure, and there's a danger of a fire or other things like that, that can be an emergency, and the 30-day notice period can be bypassed, but there still needs to be some notice, even if it's 24 hours notice, given normally or by ordinance. What you would be required to do is to post a notice on the property, or personally serve the owner, which is difficult because a lot of these owners don't reside in the city, or serve the owner by certified and regular mail. But then when the cost of the board and secure is normally asserted as a lien against the property by the tax collector. In addition, we have an abandoned property list, and what that means is that if a property's been abandoned, which, and there are a number of definitions of that, but generally there needs to be a period of time that it's been abandoned. Usually it's 6 months. The property also needs to be in need of rehabilitation, and no rehabilitation work's been done within 6 months. There was construction, but no construction has taken place for 6 months. There are outstanding property taxes for a period of at least 1 quarter. The property's a nuisance. So if you have any of those criteria, the property gets included on the city's abandoned property list, which is a kind of lien that does show up if somebody wants to sell property, and then the city has an opportunity to make sure the property gets cleaned up. In addition, if a property is on the abandoned property list, the city can proceed with a tax foreclosure on an accelerated basis. In addition, if a lien holder or if a lien purchaser company, and we have a number of them, purchases the property at a foreclosure sale, it can almost immediately bring a foreclosure action. So those are ways that the legislature's come up with to try to deal with the problem of abandoned properties. In addition, we have Article 5. Article 5 is entitled Vacant Property, Registration and Maintenance. And really what that is, that's a section that pertains to purchasers, bank foreclosures, and also tax lien purchaser foreclosures. And oftentimes you have a bank or a tax lien purchasing company, which is a private company, they bring a foreclosure action, and when they file that foreclosure action in Superior Court, they are required to give notice to the city clerk that they've filed suit. Once they do that, that triggers some obligations on the part of the bank or the tax foreclosure company. They have to register the property. There's a registration fee, and this has all been recently amended by statute, and we amended our code to make it current. Initially, that's $500. There's an additional fee of $2,000 if the property is vacant or abandoned, okay? So there are some significant fees. The purpose of those fees is to allow the city to inspect these properties and to issue any notices of violation that need to be issued. The bank is also going to be under a maintenance requirement, and it is a responsible party, and the bank can be required to appear in court and to be answerable for any conditions on the property that require maintenance. So that, in a nutshell, is the city's legislative scheme, so to speak, for dealing with abandoned and vacant properties. Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, what I think is happening sometimes is some people buy properties to speculate on resale, and they leave them, just let them sit there and sometimes deteriorate. And I guess this would give us a tool to somewhat.
Well, ultimately, if they completely, hopefully the property isn't so bad that it needs to be demolished.
Correct.
But if you go through some of the provisions I've referred to, they either give a tax lien company or another investor or the city an opportunity to acquire title to the property. Then it can be hopefully marketed to someone else, and it can be, repaired, and you get somebody in the I mean, what you want is you want these properties to be occupied. You want a tenant on the property. The worst thing that you can have, particularly for rental property, is to have a vacant unit, because it's just an invitation for people to break in. And once they break in, there's all kinds of things that are not good. It becomes a flop house for drug use. It becomes a fire hazard. It becomes a place where you get vermin, and it becomes a nuisance to everybody in the neighborhood, and it affects the neighborhood. So that's why we have these tools at our disposal to try to control that kind of problem.
So I guess what I'm suggesting is we start using them again.
Start using them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question is, who's going to enforce this, and when do we start?
I think you see in the ordinance who needs to enforce it, and we can,
It's-
direct that to the proper
yeah.
department at the.
But it's not an easy problem, and even if before we've done the demolitions, and then we all know what you have at the end of the day. You have a block and you have a couple of vacant lots, which don't really serve any useful purpose. So
Hopefully, we can get people to fix them up and get them resold and not get to the point of demolition. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be demolishing them all.
And then the other problem that you have is, we all know that Millville has a lot of half doubles, as we like to call them. They're called duplexes in other places. And then you have a one side where someone's, maybe it's an absentee landlord, and the tenant is not taking care of the property, or it's abandoned and the property is in a bad state of repair. And then the other side, you have somebody that's paying taxes and taking care of their property, and it's a real problem, because the neglect on one side ultimately will affect the other side of the property.
I agree. I think we need to reinforce it, and we'll.
Okay, another one of next year's goals.
Good thing to have goals.
Thank you, Rob.
All right. Discussion of commissioners. Commissioner Romanek?
Yes, Mayor. As some of you might know, or some of you don't, I am the liaison to the county, all of the municipalities, but county's liaison, city's liaison for discussion of South Jersey Regional Animal Shelters. We're state law required to pay somewhere to take our dogs and cats to a shelter. Our current contract is $187,355. Next year, in 2023, it rises by $683.44 to $188,038.44. Now that's a whole heck of a lot of money, I believe, to pay for somewhere to have our dogs and cats taken to. To give you an aspect of the other cities, 3 big cities, Vineland pays $406,000. They're rising to $415,000, $9,000 increase for next year. Bridgeton is at $135,000. They're going to $167,000, a $32,000 increase. Now that's an issue just for all of us, but it's been a consistent issue throughout the past 3 years. This is why in the past couple months, all the municipalities have gotten together with the authority and then with working with South Jersey Regional Animal Shelter to understand their initiative and how and why the costs come to this. We still don't know how and why of their budget because of all the municipalities. We only make up about $1 million and their operating budget is 1.7. Yes, they get grants and federal funding, but the how and why and what the dollar per, it's based off of our population size, but how do they get that dollar doesn't make sense with why we pay $187,000, why Vineland pays $400, why Bridgeton is $123. Now, we have outside expenses that we have paid, and we have paid $22,715.77 that what I've learned could have been saved. That $22,000 is for 50 cats. This was 50 cats that were removed from a property here in Millville. Now, we have apparently great housing inspectors or rental inspectors they're called that make sure the property for rent is safe, no unexposed wires, lights work, this and that. A deceased body was removed from this property. The 50 cats weren't reported. Once, I don't know when, how soon this was, but once the current renters were evicted, then the 50 cats were reported. So you're telling me that whenever that time period was lapsed, that the 50 cats weren't reported to? Reason I'm saying this is that if they were reported, we wouldn't have to pay this $22,000. If somebody would have said, hey, there's these abandoned or unmalnourished cats, there's 50 of them in cages and locked, nobody was feeding them or feeding them very irregularly. But this is outside extremity costs that we shouldn't have to be paying for, but it's just added on top. So with that $22,000, we're up and over $200,000. That's just more bad burden to our already, constricted budgetary cost. So this, as all the municipalities are working together, the county is did have an RFP out on a professional services contract, obviously, and are awarding to a Shelter One initiative tonight, I believe. But all the municipalities agreed to just move forward with this, and then in the coming year, 10-year, work together to either move to a county shelter, because Gloucester County has its own shelter, we don't, as Cumberland County. But it's just there's ways that we can educate and not have to spend $22,000 or any outside contract cost. And that's a more of a societal issue, but it's just something to note that this has been overlooked at for 10, 15 years.
If I may, you touched on one thing, which is pennies. Yeah, it's $22,000. It's pennies. Let's be clear here. The $188,000 and change, because I have that email in my hand, is not a contract. That is a contribution that the city of Millville makes to the South Jersey Regional Animal Hospital. That does not cover the transportation of an animal, and I say animal because it could be a cat, it could be a gerbil, it could be a rabbit, it could be a dog. That does not cover the veterinary fees that are charged on top of that. Remember, the key here is that is a contribution. I stood at that podium many years and discussed this, and it was ignored. I have been talking with the people that I can talk to also, looking for an avenue. There are times at night that South Jersey Regional Animal Shelter is closed, and our police officer, our animal control officer, whoever's involved with that animal, at times takes an animal all the way across the bridge to the University of Penn Veterinary Hospital.
Correct.
Who pays for that?
Required by law.
The residents of the city of Millville pay for that. Now, there are other veterinary facilities, but they're small. Believe me, I've reached out to them. We use them. But when they're locking us out at 7 or 7:30 at night, forcing us to go elsewhere, we need to figure something out. I asked for this of other commissions, and now I'm sitting here, and we need to fix it, this commission, if we can. I've talked with Commissioner Albrecht. I've been talking with him for a while about a county facility.
Correct, and it's required by law for animals to be seen. Now, what has
Yes.
changed in the years is a vet tech used to be able to administer and take care of that. That has changed when New Jersey abolished, what was the old name of the place? SPCA, New Jersey SPCA. That changed, the law changed regarding that. The law, what the law now states is a licensed veterinarian has to see hands-on the animal. Your doctor doesn't have to see you to prescribe you meds. And we're humans.
The key is, if we're contributing for the services, and I'm going to say the name because they are who are expecting this donation, they're supposed to give us a service, a 24-hour service.
You're calling it a donation, but I believe we voted on an agreement at the last meeting to do this, which makes it a contract.
It's a contribution, yes.
Is it a contract or a contribution?
I think
It's-
there is a contract that exists.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought there was a contract,
But-
because we
but
had
it
to
is
agree to
w-
pay it for the next year because of the increase. We started looking into it, and that's when this whole
Like I say,
countywide, we all agreed that we were gonna pay it.
Correct.
Right,
We
voted
did
on it.
pay it
Even though we
because
didn't want to
have
deal with the increase, and we were trying to research it, and that's where this county board is coming to see if we can create a county shelter.
And if you look at,
A
and yes, we have a year to fix this, basically. And if you look at that contract that was sent through, it's 33 pages long. The 188,000 and change, 948 and change, I believe it was, is listed as a contribution for them to offer their services. Yeah, sure, we signed a contract for a year, we're giving them a yearly.
Yeah, we have to make
Contribution.
contributions, what the contract says.
But we should be able, I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brock, we should be able to hold them liable to offer services 24 hours a day. Am
Well,
I
mean,
wrong, or?
You're talking about whether or not they're breaching the agreement
Right.
by not having services available then. I'd have to look at the agreement.
Okay.
I'm sure it's not just happening in Millville.
No, it's not. It's happening in Bridgeton, it's happening in Vineland. It's
The
happening.
13 other municipalities that
Yeah.
make up this county.
And they base that contribution on how many residents are in the city.
And not everybody owns a dog or a cat.
But that's how they view it,
Yep.
unfortunately.
I know that Vineland has been really working hard, probably for the last 3 years, or
Yes.
4 years, to find an alternative. And thus far, I don't think they've been able to find one.
They haven't been able to come to a conclusion, because yes, they have been working on it.
And the reason I questioned whether it was a need to do it within a contract is because I didn't want the general public to think we were writing a check for $182,000, or whatever, out of the goodness of our hearts.
Well, like I say, if we were to pull that up or bring that, I'll bring it to the next meeting, we'll visit this again. It specifically states that $188,000 is, and change, is a contribution to the South Jersey Regional.
Right,
Animal-
required through a
Required.
contract.
Yeah,
Law.
wording that gets in
It's
the
not
way.
a donation. All right. We
There you go.
appreciate the update.
It's frustrating, but.
Keep
I-
us in the loop.
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt.
I would like to just touch base real quick with the discussion that got past me with the possibility of how big we're going to be on a tax increase. One thing that a lot of people don't realize out there, folks 65 and over, there is a program. It's called Property Tax Relief Program. You still continue to pay your property taxes every year. The city gets its taxpayer money. The state refunds the tax increase each year to you in March or April. That's something that people can look into. That can be taken care of right here. The application's here. The application's online. This is just something that can help that sad number that we're facing. It's available to everybody. It's a property owner. that's 65 years or older. That's something to think about. I imagine a lot of people don't know that that's available to them. How
Does
it
that have
works.
a negative impact on the city?
No, it does not. It comes from the state. We pay our taxes. I say we because I have one. We pay our property taxes every quarter, and the state sends the check out from state treasury the following year.
Well, yeah, they don't have a printing press, so somebody's paying the bill, right?
Yeah, yeah. But it's not taking it out of city coffers. We pay our property taxes and we get the increase back in a check in the beginning of the year. So that's available to folks out there. I want to touch base on one final thing, we'll get done here. I've had some calls about why is there sometimes a lack of service with our EMS. Our EMS squad is running. We have people, we're working. People are sick out there. The hospital's full. You know, I want to give you just one example of today. Since this morning, at 4:01 this morning, because I reset this app every day. Since this morning, Millville EMS has run a total of 23 calls. That's a little bit over what? 14 hours. The day's not over with. Some people have reached out. I've heard it. I've seen it. I've seen the conversations. Millville EMS is working hard, just like the fire department is, just like our police department is. One thing I want you folks to remember that are watching out there or might be coming later on. Christmas is here. The entire public safety department, Millville Police, Millville Fire, Millville Rescue, they'll be out working on Christmas Day while you're home with your families. Think a little bit about them. Stop just looking at the negative. There's a lot of positive out there. With that, Mayor, progress.
Thank you. Commissioner Watson.
Thank you for the opportunity, but I don't have anything for today.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Let's talk about the airport for a minute. So, we have a lease that we lease the airport. The DRBA leases the airport from the city of Millville. The term of this lease is 30 years. Upcoming, and we have to look at the two amendments to see the actual dates yet. But what I want to do is, it will become evident in a minute what I'm going to ask you guys if you want to do. So, not prior to 72 months before the termination date, the city shall have the right to request from the leasee, which is the DRBA, a statement and of the amounts and obligations concerning the leaseur's termination payment. In other words, all the improvements they made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How much does it cost us to get out of that lease in between our 30-year extensions here? So, in order to determine if we do want to get out of that lease, if it's economically feasible to get out of that lease, we need to send them a letter to find out what that amount is, right? It has to make business sense for us to either continue it or not continue it. We can't determine that until we find out how much it would cost to get out of it. So what I'd like to do is get a consensus from you guys, so whenever the appropriate time period is, we can send a letter and ask for that amount. So it's okay to do that here, I'm sure.
Well, I looked at the original lease, and I don't think this term was changed, and what that says is, it says that we can terminate the lease if we give them a notice of non-renewal at least 60 months prior to the end date. The end date, as I read the lease, is October 20th of 2029. However, there's another clause in the lease that provides that if we want them to tell us what they say we owe for all the improvements, we're not allowed to do that until 72 months at the earliest prior to the termination date, which, as I read the lease agreement, I think that means that we would have to wait until October 19th of 2023.
I think when you look at the amendments, you'll see that date has changed, if my memory serves me correctly.
We'll have to look at, I didn't have the amendments.
Yeah, so when you look at that, I think you'll see that's
the
changed.
reason I surmise the reason that's in there is because we're not at the end of the lease yet, so they're not going to know what all of their costs are until we get closer to the end. I think that's the reason it's
So-
written that way.
So what I'm asking for now is a consensus now, so whenever that time period is, that we can go ahead and send that letter. So if it's next month, it's next month. If it's October, it's October. So whenever it is.
Yeah, the letter doesn't say we're terminating. All the
Right.
letter says is we'd like to have a bill as to what it would cost us if we did.
And not to say that we wouldn't enter into some different agreement with them that isn't a 30-year lease, but maybe to change the terms.
Perhaps we
you know,
renegotiate,
Renegotiate,
perhaps
have a
we-
better,
Yeah.
I mean, I see that, the airport's constantly trying to get business, but it doesn't seem
Yeah.
to be, hasn't been successful from my, what I'm seeing.
We were the
Um,
first commission in 15 years to talk with them, so.
Right.
That's not true. I talked to them before.
Well,
On
yes,
the commission
yeah.
before. I know that's what they said, but.
But they have Jet East, which is a major operation.
So, I mean, there's another airport that's in Delaware that they're actually telling them they don't want to renew the lease, so it gets interesting.
Probably Newcastle.
Technicalities.
Newcastle, that's it. I couldn't remember the name.
Right
of
over
it.
the bridge. Wilmington.
I don't think it's a bad thing to have that.
Well, you need the information.
We
right?
need
We're
the
gathering
information, right, and I think that will also, it's beneficial to just have, to educate us on what they have done.
So are you guys all right with sending
I
that letter
agree.
when it's time?
Yep.
Yep.
Agreed.
That's about all I have.
Sounds good. Thank you, Vice Mayor. At this time, I don't have anything right now. It's been busy. I hope everybody is ready for, or is enjoying the holiday season. It's getting cold. Why are you shaking your head over there?
I still have to go shopping.
Like a few days. And if you celebrate Hanukkah, you're short on a few gifts already. So I don't have anything else for this evening. We can just close with a public comment. If anybody would like to come to the podium and address the commission, please come to the podium, state your name, and address your concerns. And please limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Patricia Kears, Peach Drive, Millville. Probably not a real popular idea that will be received well, but you're looking for money. And the other day, I read an article on NewJersey.com that the state had $116 million in sales of marijuana or cannabis products. So I guess 2% of that goes to the towns where the dispensaries are. So I don't know if you know what 2% of 116 million is, but it's $2,320,000. And you're talking 13 licensed dispensaries in the state of New Jersey. So you're talking $290,000 approximately, if you divide it evenly, per quarter. And that's $1.16 million. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you're looking for revenue, it may not be a bad thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
If
Pierce.
I could speak to that, the city is talking with the marijuana cultivators and manufacturers, and there will be a 2% tax on those operations as well. So that might be a source of revenue, assuming the
That's not
projects go
dispensaries,
forward.
that's-
They're
Millville,
not
we
dispensaries,
can't
they're,
do-
because the 2% user tax is paid to the municipalities is assessed on all cannabis operations, not just dispensaries.
And we have prohibited retail and dispensaries or delivery. So we wouldn't be able to.
Shy.
He's not shy.
I was hiding. Larry Malone, Geisel Drive. Thank you, Mr. Russell, for the about the foreclosures. I have a quick technical question. When a bank or an investment company takes over a foreclosure with the Superior Court, you said it triggers a letter to us city. Does that happen automatically?
They're required to do that, and I think that's something that if they don't do it, they can't get a judgment of foreclosure from the foreclosure judge.
Okay.
So we do, and the clerk can tell me, she does get those
We
letters,
get
I think, on a regular basis.
Many daily, regular and certified mail.
Okay.
There,
'Cause-
so many.
So this year, I've dealt with 7 foreclosures and residential, not in Millville, but I'm the realtor. They specifically make sure that those properties are taken care of and no issues and maintained, because they truly don't want, that bank doesn't want to hear it. Like, I have to sign an agreement that I'll make sure it's maintained and everything. But, so that's interesting. So, but while we're talking about it, so let's move from the rental side of it to, like, well, it's still a rental, but a business rental like High Street. So you have a giant building that was purchased that collected rent for years, but never made one payment to his bank. And then it's foreclosed, and now it's empty, and it's probably leaking, and it's probably sitting there rotting. And I know for a fact from having a store on High Street that it's out of code. That it doesn't meet any fire codes, construction codes. Those buildings, I bet you almost all of them on High Street don't meet fire codes. They don't have sprinkler systems. They just don't. So what do we do? What now is a building that, do we have access to go inspect that building once a year, even though nobody seems to own it, or it's probably in a foreclosure, or it's in a bankruptcy or something? Is the city allowed to go in and what do we do with these stores on High Street where half of them are sitting empty? Is there a way that we can push this process? Can we be aggressive with this process and start to try to straighten this out?
That's precisely why I asked for this discussion.
Yeah.
So I know that there's people that wanted to buy some buildings on High Street, and suddenly when there was interest, the prices were,
Astronomical.
yeah, it wasn't worth it. So here we are.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're trying to figure out.
So wow, go for it. If I had to vote whether to pay extra taxes to have everything taken care of, I would vote to say yes. But that's just me. I think it's the perception. Like, we've been beat up. I've been beat up for 68 years that the government doesn't take care of things correctly, and people have the perception that that's happening. If we can show the actual facts, and we know that if our taxes go up, it's going towards specific things and not just getting wasted, which is exactly what we talked about today. Like, then it makes sense. Then you understand. Then you're not sitting in a county that's in last place maybe in everything for 40 years where you feel your money was wasted. So if we can justify it, it has to be done. Like, I choose to drive a new truck too. I mean, it's about value. So
I get you're in a position where you can say, okay, I can do it, right? But
Yes.
there's a lot of people that aren't in that position.
Right.
So
I
anybody
agree.
that can do it and wants to do it, they can certainly write the city of Millville a check for some extra money if they want. In the meantime, we're going to work on getting this stuff funded without destroying everybody's financial life.
I'll buy you a beer instead.
Seeing nobody else, we will close the public comment for the work session. We'll go to closing comments of commissioners. Commissioner Romanek?
Nothing, Mayor.
Oh, we don't have any resolutions. or anything.
No, Mayor.
Commissioner Watson?
No.
No.
Nope.
All right, we are, kind of a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And we have a hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's-
We have well,
It's scheduled at 6 o'clock.
it's work past that, so.
Okay.
Well,